Right, it's talk time. Members of the Bring Back Our Girls have been expressing anger over the recent stoppage of their march to the presidential villa in Abuja by security agents. Now the group is calling on the government to immediately rescue the abducted Chibok girls.
Our TVC's Kemi Balogun was there, and she brings us this report now.
Time and again, the Bring Back Our Girls group had marched through the streets of the nation's capital, protesting government's inability to rescue the kidnapped girls after more than 2 years. This protest is aimed at compelling a decisive action on the part of the government, particularly in the light of the recent video released by Boko Haram. Heavy security presence did not allow the protesters access to the road leading to the villa, where they had hoped to get an audience with President Buhari. But the group insists a sit-down protest will do.
We feel sad. We go away with so much of sorrow, anguish, agony, use all the words, that you can find, the dark words you can find. That's always the feeling. When we come and we don't even get to find anyone to speak to us. It clearly just shows you exactly what is going on.
It's unfortunate that we're in a democracy, in the 21st century democracy, and the people who put government and authority can't have access to them, especially because we're civil. Our demands are very, very reasonable.
Emotions took over as one of the affected mothers reads out a statement for the rescue of their daughters.
The government of Nigeria and the entire world to know that we are ready to receive our daughters in whichever form and shape they will be released.
Protesters want the authorities to gather more steam and secure the immediate release of the girls. They also want attention given to the worsening humanitarian crisis in the northeast, as well as the ongoing trials on arms procurement by the military.
President Muhammadu Buhari cannot anymore be unclear on what decision to make on the option to pursue for their rescue. We reject the recurrent excuses by Mr. President that the federal government does not know which faction of the splinter terrorist group it should engage in negotiations.
What we're saying is that if Shekau has been the main person, go ahead and start doing what you need to do in terms of letting the parents know where you are. Saying that you're negotiating is good enough for the public, but it's not good enough for the parents who have been agonizing over their daughter's whereabouts for 2 years.
The group says it remains resolute until its cries are heard and necessary actions taken by the government.
We are going to be back here every 72 hours. Until we see that the right actions are being pursued to rescue our Chibok girls.
Kemi Balogun, TVC News, Abuja.
Right, joining us now is a security expert, Tanwa Ashiru. She is an intelligence analyst with the U.S. Air Force. And we also have joining us a member of the Bring Back Our Girls group, Emam and Shehu, in our Abuja studio. It's good to see you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Nice
and
to see
happy
you
holidays.
again.
Thank you. I was.
Was,
yes.
exactly. was. She's a veteran.
Yes.
Okay. Now, let's. You've been following this face-off, let me put it that way, between the BBOG group and the security agents.
Yes.
Now, what could likely be the security threats that the BBOG march or demonstration or protest can be at this time?
Nothing. They're not a threat. They've been doing this for 2 years, and they haven't once posed any kind of nuisance to anyone. So it's very unfortunate how the police and the IGP decided to handle this situation. I think what happened was, after the last after the last video was released, the BBOG group said, you know what, enough is enough. We're going to put the pressure on the government, and every 3 days we're going to go back there and protest. So I think before they were okay, the security force agencies and the police were okay with a once in a while march. They would tell themselves, oh, don't worry, it's almost over. They would do it and then go. But then them seeing it happen every 3 days, all of a sudden was like, look, that's too much, you guys need to stop this. It's very insensitive for them to even think that way. I think the headline I even saw was the IGP says enough is enough. How do you tell a woman whose child is in the hands of terrorists, enough is enough? No, that comment should not be directed towards us. So they didn't pose a threat, and they haven't posed a threat, and they still don't pose a threat. But where the police lost face, which is where they dropped the ball, was after they, the BBOG group had to encounter a barrier 3 times. Okay, they were trying to stop them, and then they asked them, where is your, where are your permits, where is your paperwork for you to do this? And she's like, she produced every single paperwork and said, look, this is our permit to do this and to do that. Only for them to get to their destination and find another group protesting. That is just, where did they come from? And then they told them, the BBOG said, why don't you ask them for their own permit and their own license to protest? And the police didn't ask them for anything. And then this group was protesting, they were anti, BBOG or whatever. That's just, it's absolute nonsense.
Well, what's your take on the handling of this whole, Chibok girls, BBOG issue by government? And is it likely, is that what their fear is? Can it really, put a real deep dent on this government?
The government mustn't forget how they felt before they came into power. When Buhari first came into power, he sat down with BBOG and he was very open and very welcoming. He reassured them, he gave them hope. He gave all of us hope, really. And really gave them hope. And they thought, yes, finally things are going to get done. No doubt, the administration has made some progress with, Boko Haram.
Yes.
Before we were having, almost daily bombing attacks, and that has reduced drastically. So they've made progress. But even Buhari himself said, you cannot, this was back, when he first took office, you cannot defeat Boko Haram until we have found the Chibok girls. So even he knows. And so, the girls coming, the group, rather, coming every day and protesting is a stark reminder that, despite all the progress that you think you have made, these girls still haven't been found, and until you find them, it's not going to stop us. And really, the government they should have approached this in a different manner. In other words, the group is saying, tell us what you plan to do. Tell us something, because they're losing confidence. In fact, I think they read that Buhari had said in the news that, he has read in the papers that Boko Haram have broken into factions. So when they saw that, they lost hope. That, what do you mean you're getting your intel from the newspaper? That's just wrong. And so that's why you can't just pacify them by saying, oh, don't worry, we're on it. They've heard that for 2 years, and they're trying to put the pressure on to say, that's not enough anymore. Tell us, what do you plan to do?
Okay, let's bring in Emam Shehu from our Abuja studio in here now. Emam, good morning. It's good to have you join us right now. Now, first of all, let us ask, you have the message of putting pressure on government has been on for the past, in fact, since all of this has been on. But the protest to Aso Rock, specifically, what's the significance of that? What message are you going to take to the president, or maybe say to the world that hasn't been said over the times?
Our message is simple. The president said he doesn't have credible intelligence. That's what that has been his mantra since he came into office. When we first met him, a few weeks after he got sworn in, that was when he started this mantra of lack of credible intelligence. Now you cannot continue to say you don't have credible intelligence when, because of the Chibok girls abduction, the international community brought in equipment, especially surveillance equipment, and much more after Buhari came into office. And so are you telling us the equipment are not working? Are you telling us that this very important part of the insurgency, which of the counter-insurgency, which means which is accessing intelligence, is still deficient and grossly deficient? And you cannot support that argument if videos keep coming out and you keep prevaricating and not taking any action. So when this proof of life video came out, we decided it was time to up the ante and make him realize he has to do something as the commander-in-chief and stop listening to the hawks in the military who would rather have the issue pushed under the carpet.
And let me stay with you, Imam Shehu. Yes, following the proof of life video, it seemed that this sort of like gingered the BBOG group again to continue with the protests. Now that the IGP, Ibrahim Idris, has said enough is enough with distracting protests and all of that. But come to think of it, let's play the devil's advocate here. Don't you think that it is possible, really, remotely or otherwise, that the protests, are sort of kind of distraction, for government, and it's not helping the situation as it were?
It's not a distraction. It's the responsibility of government to protect every Nigerian citizen. Unfortunately, what we have seen in terms of the security architecture in Nigeria is that the privileged class enjoys the protection of the security apparatus in the country. The Chibok girls are children of less privileged people in the society, and because of this failure in security, their lives have been put at stake. And we have come out since April 30, 2014, insisting that it is the responsibility of the government, regardless of who is the commander-in-chief, to ensure that the basic minimum is done for these girls to bring them back. That is the singular purpose of this advocacy. And the girls have not been brought back, and therefore our advocacy remains. Anybody who wants us off the street should bring back the girls, and we'll be off the street the next second.
Okay, now let me bring in Tanwa in here. It is no longer news that Boko Haram has been factionalized. We have the faction in here, they have this one. But how is that compounding the negotiation that government intends to, or how they intend to engage with the militants?
You see, one of the news bites you had one of the protesters speaking on the matter, and she said, you can't say you're not sure which faction to negotiate with, because after all, the girls have always been with Shehu. In fact, there were military strikes and then the president came out and said that they fatally wounded Shehu. Well, if that's the case, you guys figured out where he was. So you must surely know that this is the area, this is a circle, this is the general area that we should be looking at to find these girls. But things have changed, I mean, no doubt. For instance, we saw, I believe last week, there were clashes between, or there are ongoing clashes between the Al-Banari faction, which is the ISIS-backed leader, and Shehu's faction. So from looking at it through open source, which is through news articles, and from what we know overall, you start thinking, okay, well, is it possible that truly Shehu has been wounded, so the head is sort of cut off. And so his people are not as effective, and that has given Al-Banari sort of, a bit of power to come in and start attacking the other faction, which is Shehu's people. Maybe they're without a leader right now, and so they're much more vulnerable. But these are things that really the intelligence agencies are supposed to calculate ahead of time and figure out, okay, this is what we're going to do. And if that's the case, if Shehu is fatally wounded, they need to know by now how many followers does Al-Banari have, because his strategy has been to try to win back the local populace by telling them, look, we're not going to attack you. We're not, we don't plan on attacking Muslims. That's not what we do. And so when he comes like that, and in fact, it says that when his faction came to attack some of the Shehu factions, so you can see them looking and thinking, okay, if he continues with that, he's going to win the support of the locals. So if that's the case, why don't you also engage him?
Exactly.
Surely.
So how does government go ahead of this, Boko Haram leaders?
Okay, one of the sure ways, but one of the key ways you can do it really is you must have people on the ground. You must have people on the ground. The locals, the Civilian Joint Task Force, these are sources of information. In fact, last week, DSS said they had arrested another Boko Haram commander and so on. They are sources of information. The Amina, who was rescued, she's a source of information. So you take information from all these different aspects, you fuse them together, and you're able to really, do some analysis work, and you can come up with some solutions.
Let's even stay with this rally, that the BBOG have insisted on, going on every 72 hours. Now, going a step further beyond, the limits that they've always, protested, and going to the villa itself, isn't that overshooting their bounds somewhat?
Okay, so they have the right to do so. Okay, we're in a democracy, and in fact, the courts, I believe, last year had ruled because the previous administration tried to do the same thing, which is to say, you guys stop this, you're not allowed to do this. And they took it to courts, and the Abuja court said, you are allowed to do it, you have the right to do so. And so she came armed, I don't know if so, Obi came armed with all of the paperwork. And so they can do that. The government is just going about it the wrong way. For instance, if you're worried about them obstructing the traffic, it's okay. Just tell them, you know what, please, you guys, if you're protesting, stay on the side of the road. It's a security hazard for you to obstruct traffic and so on and so forth. They're a peaceful group. They will do it accordingly. The whole point is for them to put pressure. And to be honest, you must give it to them because I don't know if you've noticed, but the general public sort of has lost, interest over the matter. It's drawn on for so long. When it first happened, we even saw Michelle Obama with her plaque. Twitter went crazy. But over time, if you Google BBOG, you barely see anything. Yes. So for them to still be able to maintain this pressure, we really should give them credit. They are actually the conscience of Nigeria at this point. They're the ones showing us that, as a country, we still value human life, even though the actions of the security agencies are showing otherwise. And just one more thing, statistics have actually shown that anytime security agencies are involved in any kind of situation, it tends to be more fatalities. If we think about the issue that happened in Kaduna with the Shiites and so on, by the time you brought in the military, it turned into something else completely. So as best as possible, with this knowledge, the government should look into reducing the involvement of security agencies as much as possible, especially in a situation where they're peaceful like this. There's no need to involve them because when you do, it just escalates the situation.
All right, let's bring in Emam Shehu back in here now. Emam, let me ask, the seeming restrictions from security agents on your protest, what impact has it had or is it having within the camp of the BBOG group?
Start with a clarification. Our 72-hour march was within the context of the proof of life video where we decided we were going to up the ante for a 2-week period. And we have achieved that. We have raised the ante, and as you can see, the issue has come back into the public space. So objective achieved. We are currently reviewing that situation, and we will know what to do after the Salah break. So it's not just every 72 hours. The 72 hours was within the context of the 2-week period of activity based on the proof of life video. We are not really bothered about the behavior of the security services, especially the recent attitude of the Inspector General of Police. It's obviously a carryover from the military period that we had in this country where public officers feel their loyalty is to parties and personalities rather than the constitution of the country. We continue to believe in the constitution of Nigeria, and we carry out our activism based on the ambit of the constitution of Nigeria. So they can continue to show their incompetence. That's their problem.
Now, staying with you, Emam Shehu, the security forces in the past and even in this case have, said that they have concerns that, hoodlums could hijack this protest and then, it spirals and goes completely out of hand. Talk to us, the group, the BBOG, do you have concerns that there is a possibility that, some hoodlums or miscreants could actually take advantage of your protest to foment trouble? And what are you doing, if that were the case, to prevent such a situation from arising?
Let me start by saying that as a citizens movement, even the police know that we abide by the laws of the land. Every time we are embarking on our protest, we notify the police 72 hours. We notify, if we're going to the presidency, we notify the presidency 72 hours before our protest. Much more than that, we even have do's and don'ts for our marches. And the police know that before we embark on every march, we read out the do's and don'ts because we do not want people to infiltrate our ranks and create chaos. So this is done for every march, do's and don'ts of our protest marches. There is no other group that does this in the country. And then even when we embark on the marches, the police provides us with the route to follow and provide us with escort. So it is totally mischievous of the Inspector General of Police to say we are disrupting traffic. When the police is with us, if traffic has been disrupted, then he should penalize his officers who have allowed traffic to be penalized. But of course, hoodlums, who brings the hoodlums? As we've seen in the last protest, hoodlums were brought by the security people to the villa. So that will always happen when the security forces allow themselves to be compromised and have no respect for the constitution of the country. We have over the period of this advocacy learned that this can happen. During the Jonathan administration, we were attacked at the Unity Fountain, and we have learned from that and have our own processes of identifying potential attacks and activities to take to protect ourselves.
All right, Tanwa, let me bring you in here. The BBOG group has been very consistent and has been very resilient, as the case may be. Tell us, what scenario can play out if the president decides to pay them a surprise visit? What may come out of that?
Okay, I don't know if, I'm sure you're aware, they recently launched the Change Begins With Me. And in essence, a lot of people weren't, they didn't buy into it because they pretty much told the president, look, sir, but your actions right now are not saying the same thing. And so for him to do that, then he is starting the real change that he's trying to make the rest of Nigeria follow. So it will be a big deal. In fact, and it's not, but I believe, and maybe, the other guests will be able to clarify a little bit better, but they don't just want the president to show up. That's not enough. They've seen him so many times already. What they really want, actually, is for him to tell them and share with them, look, this is what we're doing. This is the strategy right now. This is what we intend to do. I know he won't be able to share as much information with them, especially if they're going to have an operation or if it's an ongoing operation or something, but they really need to see, right now, like he said, so far what he's saying is, I don't have credible intelligence, I don't have credible intelligence. So if he showed up and gave them a surprise visit and said the same thing, they still won't be satisfied. What they want to hear is, you know what, we have gotten multiple sources of intelligence from all the various people I mentioned earlier, and even from technical means, other countries who have helped. This is what we have, so this is kind of what we're thinking about right now. And something will happen within the next month, within the next 2 months, something. They need concrete evidence that the Nigerian government and the military are actively trying to get these girls. And right now, that's what they don't have.
Okay, so Emam, Shehu, would you be satisfied if the president actually paid a surprise visit to the group? Would that be enough to assuage, your feelings?
A visit to tell us he has no credible intelligence, and yet he's telling the world that Boko Haram is factionalized? That's nothing. That means nothing to us. What he should do, first of all, is meet with the parents and give the parents a complete breakdown of what has happened from April 14, 2014 to when he took over, if he doesn't want to reveal the operations that have taken place during his period. The second thing is he promised when we met him on January 14th, he was going to set up a committee to investigate the abduction. He has not done that up till now. This is 9 months down the road. He should quickly do that, set up a committee to investigate, because that would even help him get intelligence. I mean, you know that all over the world, cases are never dead. You can put them on hold, but you go back, once you pick up a lead, you go back and revive a case. And that is what he needs to do. Make a promise and keep your promise. That's why you are the commander-in-chief, not a politician.
All right, Emam, tell us, over the years, the BBOG has been very consistent. Can you share with us how you generate this rallying point around everyone, and that passion from everyone, and even the resources where you keep up with, because I see you wearing a T-shirt, and certainly not just you, all the members wear these and all of that. Can you share with us how it goes on there between or within the group?
Well, it started out of empathy. Empathy has driven this group. When people came out, when the Jonathan administration failed to do anything for a fortnight after the girls were abducted, people were incensed because prior to that, Boko Haram went to a school in Buniyadi and slaughtered potential Nigerian leaders. And we just felt enough was enough. And therefore we came out, especially when we saw the way the women who came to Abuja were brutalized by Mrs. Jonathan's goons. And so we came out on April 30 and decided to have a massive protest. And at the end of the protest, we thought, well, ladies and gentlemen, I think we have made a statement. And people said, no, we need to go on. We never knew we were going to stay this long. And so what has driven us is empathy. And we have come to realize that the fight for the Chibok girls is the fight for the soul of Nigeria. Because clearly there's a lack of empathy, and this is fundamental in terms of the moral failure that has ravaged this country. We've lost a lot of our moral values because of a lack of empathy. We talk about being Muslims and Christians, and yet our scriptures teach us empathy, and yet we have no regard. We keep mouthing our scriptures without regard for the tenets of empathy. The parable of the Good Samaritan, it's there. And so this has driven us. And then, of course, we're a self-funding movement. We have refused right from the beginning to collect money from anybody. People have been willing within and outside the country to give us funds. We have refused because we knew the security forces, and especially under the Jonathan administration, that would be used against us. Our bank accounts have been screened severally for evidence of external funding, and they can never find such because we make the sacrifice. And that is what keeps us going. It's all about sacrifice. We have our core values, and one of the aspects of the core values is sacrifice.
Indeed, very, very well said. Emam Shehu, member of the BBOG group, Bring Back Our Girls group, want to say thank you so much for your time on TVC Breakfast. Let's come back to the studio. Tanwa is still here. Now, I mean, do you think that may just be at the root of, you know, this lingering process that we see, the lack of empathy on the part of maybe government and possibly the rest of society?
I mean, you know, the government, the military, they are working. I mean, they're men who have sacrificed their lives. They're going out there and they're fighting and they're dying, and we need to be able to acknowledge that. But really, the actions of the police tell a lot as to how Nigerians feel towards the security forces. You know, they keep talking about this thing called community policing. And the whole idea behind it is that the community should be able to feel free to call or approach the police and say, look, sir, this is what I know. There's some funny people here. There's a group that gathers here with guns every night. You know, be able to share that information with them so that they can action it. But then when they're doing things like this, which is putting pressure on innocent Nigerians, you know, jailing innocent people and so on and so forth, it makes the public not very interested in working with or cooperating with the security agencies. So really, before they do things like this, they have to think about it from a strategic point of view. You know, this Change Begins With Me program or thing that they're launching, it's supposed to be a bit of psychological, you know, psyops, so to speak. But the truth about it is that it didn't need to be a fanfare. If it's something you intend on doing, just start doing it from the grassroots. Just start doing it. Start meeting with people, speaking with people. I mean, part of it is to generate empathy. So Nigerians start thinking about each other, and we don't just go crazy and start, you know, killing people and so on. But really, you have to do it with grassroots and know that these people, you truly have to protect the average Nigerians.
And
that
not
is their
necessarily
job.
this them and us.
Yeah, exactly, and
stand.
start and attack them and pressure them. That's not the way to go.
All right. Basically, maybe let me ask you this before we leave. We have often heard about the call to get assistance from other countries, United States, Israel, UK, and all of that. They have always and often said, we're ready to help. But in this case, how should the template of that help and assistance really work?
Okay, well, if there's one thing that we can see is that from the previous administration and now, we complained with the previous one, we're still complaining now. It shows us that it's not about any political party, okay? It's not about any one individual, it's Nigerians as a whole. And when you look at these security agencies and if you look at how things operate in Abuja, you realize that a lot of it is endemic, it's in the system. That's how the system works. For as long as I know, there's been a lot of resistance to outside help. Funny enough, even people like myself who, you know, we had served in other militaries, we come with this expertise. You would think that at least the Nigerian security agencies or even the government would be willing to use our expertise and say, you know what, you guys come in, you have the knowledge, you have the skills, come and work together with us. But you don't necessarily find that. You know, it's more of a, well, you think you're better than us sort of thing, and that's not the way forward. So you really need to, they need to be a bit more encompassing, even with the outside help, receive the help, use the help, and don't think that it makes you look bad. It doesn't. It doesn't make you look bad at all to get help.
Okay, Tanwa Ashiru, security consultant, and used to be with the U.S. Air Force.
Yes.
Thank you so much for shedding light
Thank you.
on this for us. Thank you.